I said, Mrs. Steer, wait a minute. You're telling me God's going to kill my mother and father? Well, yes, because he'll have to. And she rationalized this, right? I said, you're saying that God, I said, my mother and father are the nicest people I know. They're kind and loving and sincere and generous and understanding, sympathetic, loyal. They're wonderful people. You're saying God's going to kill them? Well, yes, because he'll have to, because... And she rationalized it some more. I told her, Mrs. Steer, you may think that, and I knew what their beliefs were. They believed that after Armageddon, when you bury all the bones of all the people that God killed, then the lion will lay down with the lamb and will live in peace on earth forever. I said, you may believe that, Mrs. Steer. You may believe that we will live in peace forever where the lion lays down with the lamb, knowing that God had killed your loving parents. That may be heaven for you, but that wouldn't be heaven for me. That would be hell. I don't want to live on that planet knowing that the God I supposedly love killed my beautiful mother and father. That would be hell. And her eyes got as big as saucers. Oh, you can't believe that. I said, yes, that's what I believe. I'm sorry. But God may be just the way you say he is, but he's not my God. And I walked out of Mrs. Steer's house. This time I didn't have a lump in my throat, though. This time I felt a surge of power within me that I've never experienced in my life. And I can tell you that there was a real shift in my whole experience after that moment. I was empowered. I found my inner strength, my inner power in that moment, in that truth. And I'll never forget what I told God as I walked home. I said, you know, God, you may be just the way they say you are. And if you are, I'm sorry, but I can't worship you. And then as an afterthought, I thought, somehow I think you're not that way. But you're going to have to reveal yourself to me, because I'm not getting involved with any more churches. I'm done with churches. About 4 years later, my father died. And as I said, and as I've explained, he was the most beautiful, powerful person in my life. He was a policeman. He was very wise. He was very kind. He was a gentle giant. Everybody loved him. And my whole family and everybody we knew, our extended family, all of our friends, we went into this odyssey of grief. It's the only way I can describe it. Nobody was capable of comforting anybody else. We were all numb with grief. We were all paralyzed. Words were so inadequate. And even if we had words, there was no way. The pain was too great to say anything that seemed to matter or make a difference. And we kind of all went our own ways, not far, but we kind of went into our own shell and just tried to find comfort as we could. I was a very optimistic person. And it felt as though my heart was dying. And so then he died a couple of days before Christmas. So about January, the following year, that was in 1976, I was searching for comfort. And again, I kept hearing the little voice. You hear the still small voice saying to me, you have to find the good news. And that, I kept hearing that repeated. You have to find the good news. And so I thought, well, okay, but where is the good news? I told God, I need to know that my father is. I need to know where he is. But more importantly, I need to know that he is. And so, of course, I went to the Bible because where else would it be? That's where everybody always told you to look. And the first couple of times I tried to find the good news, I thumbed through. I had been in Bible study before. I was certainly not an expert on the Bible, though. I thumbed through, and I couldn't find the good news I was looking for. It seemed like everything I found was just shallow. And as I said, my need for comfort was so great. Third time I thought, okay, I'll read it from cover to cover. Certainly I'll find the good news if I do that. I was 20 years old. I started with Genesis. Gonna read it from cover to cover. Well, I got to the begats. So-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so. And I thought, God, what I'm looking for isn't here. I need to hear the good news now, or I'm going to lose my mind. And I threw that book down, and I sobbed. You've got to tell me the good news soon. Within days, my husband, who was in jail for possession of illegal substances, called me, and he said, when you come down to visit this Saturday, will you bring $12.50 with you? I said, $12.50, what's it for? It's for this book. What kind of a book? It's a spiritual book. What kind of a spiritual book? Oh, it's just called the Urantia Book. And some people down here are doing a study group, and I'd like to join it. And I thought, any spiritual book that would have this man's attention is probably a good thing. So I said, okay, I'll bring the $12.50. So I did, and as a result, the Urantia Book ended up in my hands. I remember my husband, I sat down at the visiting table with him, and I cracked it open to the life and teachings of Jesus. And I cracked it open to birth and infancy, which is the heading of a paper, and Mary and Joseph, the first section in that paper. And I knew enough about the Bible as I read this section to know that what was being said in here is not in the Bible. And I thought three things. The first thing I thought as I read about Mary and Joseph and their lineage and their hair color and these details about these two individuals, I thought, who would pretend to know that? And then I thought, that's not in the Bible. And then I thought, if someone would pretend to know this, why would they? What's the point? And I looked across the table to my husband and I said, I need to read this book. He said, I know you do. Take it with you. And he pushed it at me. I said, well, what are you going to read? And I pushed it back at him. He said, I'll look on someone else's book. And he pushed it back at me. So I said, okay, I'll take it. And I took it home. And you can't imagine, loving Jesus the way I do, how much I wanted to look in that section, the Jesus papers. But something in me said, this is the good news that I've been looking for. And you need to read this whole book.